How was JC foul upgraded to a flagrant one? In judgment of the officials, the foul by Sheldon was unnecessary. The contact to Caitlin Clark's face. Furthermore, there was wind up and impact, and the contact to the face carries a potential for injury. Question: what went into deciding Marina should get a technical instead of something more severe like an ejection? She said the contact made by Mabrey did not rise to the level.
The WNBA just dropped their official report on the Fever Sun showdown, and let me tell you, it doesn't just make matters worse. It rips the lid off a system so rigged, so transparently corrupt, you'll wonder if they even tried to hide it. The refs have had their say, clapped back at all the criticism, and what we got in return was an absolute masterclass in how to spin complete and utter nonsense while still pretending to be the arbiters of justice.
He said, Marina Mabrey's technical foul from the Fever Sun game has been upgraded to a flagrant 2, the league told ESPN. A flagrant 2 comes from a standard fine. Additionally, Sophie Cunningham was fined separately for her hard foul with 40 seconds left to play. No players will be suspended. And a lot of fans were really upset about this because if Marina Mabrey's foul during the game was called a flagrant 2, like it was upgraded to, then she would have been ejected during the game, and I don't think any of this stuff with Sophie and JC would have happened at the end of the game if the refs would have gotten control of the game much earlier on. And I do think if they would have ejected Marina Mabrey during that whole play when she completely blindsided Caitlin, it wasn't a basketball play, it was after the whistle. If she would have been ejected at that point in time, I think it would have set the tone for the rest.
Now let's break this down, because what we're witnessing is more than just bad officiating. It's a systematic, in-your-face targeting of Indiana Fever players. It's so blatant, so obvious that even the refs' own flimsy explanations can't cover it up anymore. Seriously, if you're rocking an Indiana Fever jersey, especially if your name happens to be Caitlin Clark, you are by some insane metric 10 times less likely to get a call go your way. That's not hyperbole, folks. That's the cold, hard truth staring us all down.
So Caitlin Clark gets poked in the eye. Marina Mabrey doesn't even see what happens, and she just decides to clean Caitlin Clark out of it. And the referees just said, nah, was not worth an injection. But now, in an update, it has been upgraded. It has been upgraded. So, she has now been upgraded to a flagrant 2. So basically, all they had to do was just eject her. All they had to do was eject her, and none of this happens. If the referees had ejected Marina Mabrey, nothing else happens. The Sophie Cunningham situation does not happen.
So what profound wisdom did head referee Ashley Gloss drop about this dumpster fire of a game? Brace yourselves for this absolute gem. The contact made by Mabrey did not warrant an ejection. Furthermore, it did not fulfill criteria for flagrant penalty 2. Are you kidding me right now? Marina Mabrey blindsided Caitlin Clark, knocked her flat on the ground from behind, after Clark was already dealing with an eye poke. And that somehow doesn't warrant an ejection?
Ejection. How the fuck does that not rise to a level of ejection? Someone explain that to me. I think even in the NBA that might have been an ejection. I think both of them would have got ejected. She said additionally it did not meet the criteria for flagrant 1 foul penalty 2. So what does? Right? Question: why did Caitlin Clark get a technical foul? After the foul by Sheldon, Clark reached in an unsportsmanlike manner towards Sheldon. What type of sense? Yo, she got hit in the eye. It did, in one angle, it looks like she got damn near punched. And then she trying to get up. She trying to get the girl off her. The girl attacks at her, and then Marina comes and knocks her down. That's crazy. So you gotta wait till something happens so the lead viewership could plummet for another.
But wait, it somehow gets even better. According to Gloss's logic, Clark received a technical foul because she apparently exhibited unsportsmanlike behavior towards Sheldon after getting her eye gouged. So let me get this straight. You get physically assaulted on the court, and when you have the sheer audacity to react like a normal human being, you're the one penalized. That's not just backwards logic. It's a full-blown existential crisis for the rulebook.
The logic is that Caitlin Clark deserves to have people kind of go at her because she's a trash talker. Okay, if that is the logic. But the media are now saying Caitlin Clark brings everything on herself. And by the way, Caitlin Clark, if you want to say JC Sheldon getting in her face and like everything until the eye gouge, nobody brings eye gouges on themselves. This is the same as, oh, she brings it on herself with the push-up.
And the cherry on top of this officiating disaster? Sophie Cunningham gets ejected for a flagrant 2 foul when she finally decides to stand up for her teammate. Meanwhile, Mabrey, the player who committed what any sane person would call a literal assault, initially walked away with nothing more than a technical. It took a massive public outcry for them to quietly, begrudgingly upgrade Mabrey's foul to a flagrant 2. But still no ejection, still no suspension. Convenient, isn't it?
They got it right at the end of the day, but why not get it right away? That is what most of us are talking about, man. There's no way y'all coming after the game and then now you're saying, oh, it should have been a flagrant 2. Oh, we should have. Look, you're catching the smoke and now you want to change it. You need to do it during the game. All right, during the game, go ahead and call it the way it is, man. Stop with the nonsense.
Here's where it gets truly infuriating. The statistics don't lie, even when the referees do. Caitlin Clark has somehow managed to suffer a staggering 17% of all flagrant fouls in the entire league this season. Just let that sink in. One single player accounting for nearly 1/5 of every flagrant foul. Either Clark is the most reckless player to ever grace a WNBA court, or, and here's a wild thought, maybe just maybe, opponents are targeting her and the refs are absolutely deliberately letting it happen. Yet these officials want us to believe this is all just a cosmic coincidence. They want us to think the most skilled, most watched, most marketable player in women's basketball just happens to be the league's punching bag, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with how these games are being officiated.
Specifically, detail what you mean by get control of the game, just to be in your words.
Get control of the game is call the fouls that are actually happening on the floor. Right, and consistently call the fouls that are actually happening on the floor. Okay, not just if somebody swings and misses, right? Like, consistently call the fouls.
Coach, do you think it's something pertaining to your team, or do you think this is a league-wide issue?
Well, I've seen quite a few dust-ups in the league so far, so I think it's a league-wide issue. I mean, bad officiating is bad officiating.
And then what did you make of Sophie Cunningham's flagrant foul on JC towards the end?
It was a flagrant foul.
Do you think it's like defending Caitlin or defending the team, or how do you view just how it all?
I view it as a flagrant foul.
I'll ask about the game too.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Coach Stephanie White, bless her, saw this train wreck coming from the very first quarter of that Sun game. She literally warned the officials that tensions were escalating, that something was going to boil over if they didn't take control. And what did these esteemed referees do? They shrugged, they ignored her, they let the game spiral into chaos, and then acted utterly shocked when it exploded. Even the WNBA itself grudgingly admitted their referees lost control of the Fever Sun game and acknowledged officiating errors. Yet the primary disciplinary action landed squarely on Sophie Cunningham, the player who was defending her teammate, not the instigator. Multiple sources confirmed this isn't an isolated incident. Complaints about the refs have become so consistent and widespread in the WNBA that it's now a clear pattern of mistakes, severely damaging the quality of play. And, surprise, surprise, Indiana seems to be consistently bearing the brunt of these errors.
It blows my mind how they can somehow get refs for the WNBA that can't control the game. Like, half of your job as a ref is to control the players, control the game, make sure things don't randomly get out of hand. And then you just watch things get out of hand and you're like, dude, this is gonna go so viral later. Like, I'm convinced that's what the refs were thinking last night during the Fever and the Sun game. Dude, this is gonna go so viral later. Because, like, they had no control over that. Absolutely no control over that game, dog. And at the end of the season last year, one of the things I said, like, I really hope changes in the W between last year and this year is that they get better refs that kind of actually give a shit and, like, know what they're doing. And they haven't done that. They still haven't done that.
The most damning evidence of this deep-seated corruption isn't just one game. It's the maddening pattern of how different players receive vastly different treatment for strikingly similar actions. Mabrey throws a cheap shot that sends Clark crashing, initially gets a technical. Sophie Cunningham retaliates with a hard, yet controlled foul to send a message, and she's immediately ejected. Let's be crystal clear, Cunningham's foul was intentional, yes, but it was the kind of foul that only happens when officials completely lose control of a game. She wrapped up a bit late, she glared, but she did not unleash the kind of dirty play Mabrey pulled on Clark. Yet, in the ref's twisted, nonsensical logic, Cunningham's action was somehow more deserving of an ejection than Mabrey's outright assault. Even the broadcasters live on air called it out, openly blaming the officials and stating that if they'd done their jobs earlier, none of this would have happened. The people whose job it is to explain the game couldn't believe their own eyes.
She said no place in the game for what Sophie Cunningham did. What about what she didn't say shit about what the other two people did. She said no place in the game for what Sophie Cunningham did. That warrants further review and penalty from the lead. But you're not gonna review and penalize what
Indiana Fever coach Stephanie White deserves immense credit and a medal for having the guts to publicly call out this rampant corruption. In her post-game press conference, she delivered one of the most devastating critiques of WNBA officiating we've ever heard. Everybody's getting better except the officials. But White didn't stop there. She made it abundantly clear that this isn't just about one atrocious game. It's about an entire season of biased officiating against her team. The disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable, White stated, and she is absolutely undeniably right. When your coach is forced to spend press conferences defending basic fairness instead of talking about basketball, you know the entire system is fundamentally broken. White also brilliantly pointed out something crucial the refs refuse to admit. There's supposedly a system in place for teams to file grievances about officiating, but she clearly stated, "I don't know if I have a feeling that the system works." That's a direct mic-dropping accusation that the entire WNBA accountability system is a complete sham.
Every year when we have our league meetings in the fall and in the spring, we say the same thing over and over and over. And nothing has changed. So, I'm not sure outside of continuing to submit clips, continuing to talk about it. Like, look, their job is hard. Their job is hard. Their job is hard, right? Their job is hard. The game has changed so much. Players are faster, they're better, they're bigger, they're stronger. They're as good as they've ever been. They're as athletic as they've ever been. The game is fast now. Things are happening quickly. Everybody's getting better. Except the officials.
After all the scathing criticism, after all the mountain of evidence, after being called out by fans, coaches, and analysts across the nation, what did the WNBA do? They acknowledged an officiating error and conceded their refs lost control. Oh, how incredibly generous of them to finally admit the blindingly obvious, but only after being backed into a corner by overwhelming, irrefutable proof. But here's the absolute kicker. They didn't suspend anyone except Sophie Cunningham, the player who was literally just defending her teammate. Marina Mabrey gets a laughable fine and just moves on. The message couldn't be clearer. If you're an Indiana Fever player, you will be held to a completely different, impossibly stricter standard than everyone else in the league. The league's investigation is supposedly ongoing, but let's be real, we all know exactly how these things end. They'll issue some bland, meaningless statement about improving officiating standards, maybe reassign a few refs for a game or two, and then slink right back to the same old corrupt practices.
So it's really people out here defending Marina Mabrey for Madden hit sticking Caitlin Clark to the floor, saying that she's just protecting her teammate. For one, it involved Caitlin Clark and JC Sheldon. They had their little spiel before that. And then JC Sheldon scratches Clark in the face, then invades her space after that. Clark pushes her away because of that. And then Marina Mabrey comes get involved and Madden hit sticks her to the floor, man. And y'all just like she was protecting her teammate. But then Sophie Cunningham is getting called vile and disgusting for dropping JC Sheldon to the floor and dragging her by the hair. So Sophie Cunningham can't stick up for her teammate, or else it's vile and disgusting. But Marina Mabrey could get involved in something that didn't involve her, and it's just she was protecting her teammate. The Caitlin Clark hate is so forced.
Let's dedicate a moment to Sophie Cunningham, because her treatment perfectly encapsulates everything rotten about WNBA officiating. Cunningham has been one of the very few players consistently willing to stand up for Caitlin Clark when opponents get physical. She embodies the kind of fierce teammate loyalty every professional sports team craves. But the refs have apparently decided that protecting your teammate is a far greater crime than intentionally targeting the league's biggest star. Cunningham gets ejected and fined for sending a message that the officials themselves should have been enforcing all season long. Don't touch our players. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. The very same refs who refuse to protect Clark from obvious targeting will instantly eject anyone who dares to do their job for them. It's like they're actively encouraging opponents to take cheap shots at Indiana players while simultaneously punishing anyone who fights back.
Petition to ban her. 181 people think that Sophie Cunningham should be banned from the WNBA for misconduct. Are you kidding me? We used to see something more intense than that every night in the NBA when I was a kid. What Sophie Cunningham did, man, honestly, maybe it's just too intense for you. Maybe you need another hobby. Maybe you should collect stamps rather than watch sports if you think what Sophie Cunningham did was out of line. And I assume that those are butthurt Connecticut Sun fans. I don't expect Caitlin Clark to get preferential treatment at all, but I expect her to get equal treatment to everybody else in the league. It cannot be open season on the face of the league any longer.
Let's dissect each of these referees' ridiculous explanations, because they collapse under the slightest scrutiny. Ashley Gloss insisted Mabrey's contact didn't warrant an ejection, but by what standard? If shoving an opponent to the ground from behind during a dead ball situation isn't grounds for ejection, then what exactly is? Gloss also claimed Clark's technical was justified because she showed unsportsmanlike behavior. But what's unsportsmanlike about reacting like a human being to getting your eye poked and then blindsided? Are players supposed to just smile and say thank you when opponents assault them? The refs demand we believe they're applying the rules consistently, but their own actions scream that's a flat-out lie. If they were consistent, Marina Mabrey would have been ejected immediately. If they were consistent, Caitlin Clark wouldn't be absorbing nearly 20% of all flagrant fouls in the entire league.
Importantly, the league, the refs, you're gonna let people take cheap shots like that over and over and over at the face of your league, the future of the league, the most important player in your league? How do you not eject her? How do you not eject her? And that leads to the end of the game. Finally, when Sophie Cunningham, the other girl from Ohio State, I don't even forget her name, she's so irrelevant, the one who raked Caitlin in the eyes, driving down for a layup, and Sophie hard fouls her, then puts her in like a chokehold, bench clearing brawl. Finally, somebody stands up, and that's what the Fever are going to have to do. And the coach said it after the game. If the refs are going to let people have open season on Caitlin, bump her, knock her down, throw her down, cheap shot her, it's time for the Fever to wake up like Sophie Cunningham did, say,
this corruption, make no mistake, stretches far beyond one game or even one season. What we're witnessing is a systematic, undeniable effort to diminish the impact of the most transformative player women's basketball has ever seen. The officials, it seems, have collectively decided that Caitlin Clark's unprecedented success threatens their established narratives, so they're hell-bent on making her path as difficult, as brutal as possible. The evidence is overwhelming. The statistics are damning. The pattern is undeniable. Yet the refs continue to gaslight fans with explanations that are an insult to our intelligence. As WNBA analyst Annie Costabile perfectly summed it up, there's been a lot of evidence over the years that have indicated that the officials need to grow with the game, and we haven't quite seen that reflected as of late. The game is evolving, the talent is skyrocketing, but the officiating, it's utterly disastrously stuck in the past.
As we watch the WNBA every day because of the way they play the game, because I love the WNBA, I love the way they play the game, but we really watch it because Caitlin Clark and everybody watching. Now listen, if I keep bumping her, knocking her down, might get her a concussion, you might hurt her for real. For 2 weeks, she was done with like a hamstring. She was down. 55% of the viewership was down. She comes back the next game, it's about 3 million viewers. Now let me tell you something. Growing up in the hood, they teach you this. Always protect the money. Y'all keep hurting her and all that. She going for a year or two. Ain't nobody gonna watch it. If nobody watches, how y'all gonna make and generate money? Stop playing with that girl home. Look, y'all need to start doing is put them emails together with the commissioner to the referees. Don't put y'all damn hands on Caitlin like that. You can foul her, but don't hurt her. And if you hurt her, go hurt your pop.
The WNBA has a pivotal choice to make. They can cling to their corrupt officials and continue pretending this glaring bias doesn't exist, or they can finally genuinely address the systemic problems actively damaging their product. Because make no mistake, this corruption is gutting the entire league. Fans aren't stupid. We can all see exactly what's happening. When virtually every independent observer reaches the exact same conclusion about officiating bias, that's not a coincidence. That's definitive evidence. The refs' desperate explanations aren't fooling anyone except themselves. The time for flimsy excuses is over. The time for fake accountability systems is over. Sophie Cunningham shouldn't have to moonlight as an enforcer because the referees refuse to do their fundamental jobs. Caitlin Clark shouldn't have to play through obvious targeting because officials are trying to protect some archaic, irrelevant narrative. This isn't just about one player or one team anymore. It's about the very integrity of the entire sport, and right now, that integrity is being relentlessly undermined by officials who clearly care more about controlling outcomes than about calling fair games. The WNBA better wake up and fix this deep-seated corruption fast before they alienate the very fans they've worked so hard and so recently to attract.